The shattered executive, the divorce papers, seemed to mock Diana Vale from across her mahogany desk. At 32, she had climbed every rung of the corporate ladder, building herself into one of the city's most respected marketing executives. But tonight, surrounded by the trappings of her success, she felt utterly hollow. Rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, each drop echoing the rhythm of her breaking heart. The elegant space that once symbolized her achievements now felt like a beautiful prison, trapping her with memories she couldn't escape. Her phone buzzed again, another message from Marcus. 3 months had passed since she'd discovered the affair, since her world had imploded in the most devastating way possible. It wasn't just that her husband had cheated, it was who he'd chosen. Rebecca, her business partner, her closest friend, the woman who'd stood as maid of honor at their wedding. Diana's hands trembled as she gathered the scattered papers. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound could. Rebecca had been the keeper of her secrets, the confidant who knew her deepest fears and biggest dreams. They were building a life together while Diana sat alone, picking up the pieces of her shattered existence. The office clock read 8:47 p.m. Her colleagues had abandoned their desks hours ago, returning to homes filled with laughter and love. Diana couldn't face her empty apartment. The silence there was deafening, filled with ghosts of promises that would never be fulfilled. She'd thrown herself into work with desperate intensity, accepting every project, working until exhaustion claimed her. But tonight, even her passion for creating brilliant campaigns felt meaningless. She needed escape, something to dull the constant ache in her chest. The Crimson Lounge was only 3 blocks away, an upscale establishment where she could disappear into the shadows and drink away her pain. As she grabbed her briefcase and headed for the elevator, Diana had no idea that this decision would change the trajectory of her entire life. The unexpected encounter, the rain, had softened to a gentle drizzle as Diana walked toward the Crimson Lounge, her heels clicking rhythmically against the wet pavement. The upscale establishment exuded sophistication with its dim amber lighting and rich leather furnishings. Jazz music floated through the air, creating an atmosphere of refined elegance. Diana chose a seat at the far end of the mahogany bar, away from couples sharing intimate conversations that only reminded her of what she'd lost. The bartender, a distinguished man in his 50s, approached with a knowing smile. "What can I get you tonight, miss?" "Whiskey neat." "Make it a double." She had barely taken her first sip when a deep voice spoke from beside her. Rough day at the office? Diana turned to find herself looking into the most striking pair of green eyes she'd ever seen. The man was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and there was something magnetic about his presence that made her pulse quicken. "Something like that," Diana replied, taking another sip. The whiskey burned pleasantly against her throat. "Adrien Cross," he said, extending his hand. Diana nearly choked on her drink. Everyone in the business world knew that name. Adrien Cross was the enigmatic billionaire who had built Cross Industries from nothing into a tech empire worth billions. He was notoriously private, rarely appearing in public and never giving interviews. "Diana Vale," she managed, shaking his hand. His touch sent an unexpected jolt of electricity through her. "The Diana Vale. I've heard about your work with the Harrison campaign. Brilliant strategy."
Yes.
Despite her emotional turmoil, Diana felt a flutter of pride. "You know my work?" Adrien signaled the bartender for another round. "I make it my business to know talented people." Your campaign increased their market share by 40% in 6 months. That kind of innovation doesn't go unnoticed. For the first time in months, Diana felt genuinely appreciated for her professional accomplishments rather than pitied for her personal failures. "What brings a tech mogul to a place like this on a Tuesday night?" she asked. Adrien's smile held a hint of sadness. "Same as you, I imagine. Sometimes success doesn't fill all the empty spaces in your life." To asterisk the connection, they talked for hours, the conversation flowing as smoothly as the expensive whiskey Adrien ordered. Diana found herself sharing things she'd never told anyone, not even Rebecca. She spoke about her dreams of starting her own agency, her fear of taking risks, and the crushing disappointment of her marriage's failure. Adrien listened intently, occasionally sharing glimpses of his own struggles with the isolation that came with immense wealth and responsibility. There was something deeply authentic about him that made Diana forget about his billionaire status and see him simply as a man who understood pain. "You know what I find fascinating about successful people?" Adrien said, leaning closer. "We're all running from something, but we convince ourselves we're running towards something better." "And what are you running from?" Diana asked, surprised by her own boldness. Adrien's eyes darkened. "The same thing you are? The fear that maybe we're not as strong as everyone thinks we are?" The vulnerability in his voice touched something deep inside Diana. Here was a man who had everything money could buy, yet he seemed as lost as she felt. The attraction between them was undeniable, crackling in the air like electricity before a storm. "I should go," Diana said, though every fiber of her being wanted to stay. "Should and want are two very different things," Adrien replied softly. "What do you want, Diana?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility and danger. Diana looked into his eyes and saw her own longing reflected back at her. For months, she had felt numb, going through the motions of living without truly feeling alive. But sitting here with Adrien, she felt something awakening inside her, something she thought Marcus had killed forever. "I want to feel alive again," she whispered. Adrien stood and offered his hand. "Then come with me." Diana hesitated for only a moment before placing her hand in his. They left the lounge together, stepping into the cool night air. Adrien's driver was waiting with a sleek black sedan. And within minutes they were gliding through the city's streets toward the elite district where only the wealthy resided. As the city lights blurred past the windows, Diana felt as though she was crossing a threshold, leaving behind the woman who had been betrayed and broken, stepping towards someone entirely new. The awakening Adrien's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a gleaming skyscraper. The elevator ride felt eternal, charged with anticipation and nervous energy. When the doors opened, Diana gasped. The space was breathtaking, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city lights. Modern art adorned the walls, and every piece of furniture looked like it belonged in a design magazine. "This is incredible," Diana breathed, walking toward the windows. "It's just a place," Adrien said, moving to stand behind her. "It's the company that makes it special." Diana could feel the heat of his body, smell his intoxicating cologne. When she turned to face him, the space between them seemed to disappear. His hands cupped her face gently, thumbs tracing her cheekbones. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Instead of answering with words, Diana rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was electric, igniting something primal and desperate inside both of them. Months of pain and loneliness poured out as they lost themselves in each other, finding solace and passion in the most unexpected place. They made love with an intensity that surprised them both, as if they were trying to heal each other's wounded souls through touch and whispered promises. Adrien was gentle, yet passionate, attentive to her every response, making Diana feel cherished in a way she had never experienced before. Afterward, they lay entwined on his massive bed, watching the city lights twinkle below. Diana felt at peace. She hadn't known was possible, her head resting on Adrien's chest as his fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "What happens now?" she asked softly. "Now we see if lightning can strike twice," Adrien replied, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. Diana closed her eyes, allowing herself to hope for the first time since her world had fallen apart. Maybe. This was her chance at a new beginning. Fresh start with someone who understood the cost of success and the value of genuine connection. As sleep claimed her, she felt safer and more content than she had in years, unaware that morning would bring decisions that would reshape both their lives forever. The new beginning Diana woke to the gentle warmth of sunlight streaming through massive windows and the intoxicating scent of freshly brewed coffee. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the events of the previous night came flooding back. She was in Adrien Cross's penthouse, wrapped in silk sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The sound of movement in the kitchen drew her attention. Adrien appeared in the doorway, impeccably dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, carrying 2 steaming mugs. Even in the morning light, he was devastatingly handsome. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, settling beside her on the bed and offering her a mug. "I wasn't sure how you liked your coffee." "Black is perfect," Diana replied, accepting the mug. Gratefully, the coffee was exceptional, rich and aromatic. "You didn't have to get dressed." "I should probably be the one sneaking out before dawn," she said with a nervous laugh. Adrien's expression grew serious. "Is that what you want? To sneak out and pretend this never happened?" Diana studied his face, searching for any sign that this was just another conquest for him. Instead, she saw vulnerability and hope, the same emotions swirling inside her own chest. "No," she admitted softly, "I don't want to pretend." "Good, because I have a proposition for you." Adrien set down his mug and turned to face her fully. "Cross Industries is expanding into new markets, and I need someone with your expertise to head our marketing division. The salary would be triple what you're making now, plus equity in the company." Diana nearly spilled her coffee.
Ow!
"Are you offering me a job because we slept together?" "I'm offering you a job because you're brilliant at what you do. The fact that we have incredible chemistry is just a bonus." Adrien's smile was both professional and intimate. Diana's mind raced. This was the opportunity she'd dreamed of, a chance to work at the highest level, to prove herself beyond any doubt. But it was also terrifying, mixing business with whatever. This was between them. What if it doesn't work out? Between us, I mean. "Then you'll still be the best marketing executive Cross Industries has ever had," Adrien said simply. "Diana, I'm not asking you to choose between your career and your heart. I'm asking if you're brave enough to have both." And 6 months later, Diana stood in her new corner office, larger than her previous one, with an even better view. Cross Industries' latest campaign had exceeded all projections. She'd just been featured on the cover of Marketing Excellence magazine. Her phone buzzed with a text from Adrien. "Dinner tonight? I have something important to ask you." Diana smiled, her heart racing with anticipation. The woman who had once sat broken in a bar, drowning her sorrows in whiskey, was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who had learned that sometimes the most beautiful chapters of your life begin when you think the story is over. She had taken the biggest risk of her life, trusting in love again, believing in second chances. As she looked out at the city that had once seemed so cold and unforgiving, Diana knew that sometimes getting lost was exactly what you needed to. Find yourself. That night, when Adrien dropped to one knee in the same penthouse where they'd first made love, Diana said yes without hesitation. She had learned that the heart was resilient, capable of healing and loving more deeply than she'd ever imagined possible. As they stood on the terrace, the city lights twinkling below them like stars, Diana realized that her story wasn't about the marriage that ended, it was about the love that began when she was brave enough to start over. Sometimes the best things in life come when you least expect them, to people who have been broken but refuse to stay that way. Diana had found her second chance, and this time she was going to make it count. The end.